It's January 2024, Year of the Dragon, and with a new year, we get a beautiful new user interface for Draw Things. I'm going to show you all of it over the next 20 minutes. This video is mostly for new and casual users who need a refresher. I'll save the in-depth feature and workflow tutorials for another video, so you might want to subscribe because we have a lot of new add-ons in the last couple of months, including low-step models, IP adapter, QR code generator, and stable video diffusion. All of these will get a feature and workflow video. It's on my list. And I'm going to try to keep my comments to minimum because we have a lot to see. So first I'm going into the machine settings, which is the AI chip icon down on the bottom left. Now don't worry about this stuff. Draw Things is designed to optimize itself automatically for your system. You can override these settings, but you shouldn't need to. Now the very important UI setting is down at the bottom. It's the font size, and I'm setting it to the largest. Now, while we're here, we can close any hint text by clicking in the header of each parameter. This is pretty consistent across the interface. Just click on the parameter header to get more info or to hide. Now, the biggest change is the Project Manager. It's the first button in this new menu rail on the left. Draw Things creates a database for each project. It stores the entire history, prompts, and images in your root drive's library folder. And that's a problem on OS X because the root folders are hidden and unsearchable. You'll actually need to find them before you can even reload an old project. So if you've been dumping all your Draw Things images into a desktop folder like I have, the Projects Manager will fundamentally change how you work with Draw Things. You'll want to take the effort to manage your projects and delete the old garbage. Now, if you delete a lot of images inside a project, you may need to deep clean and vacuum the database to free up that storage. It doesn't always clear the database itself. We can export to store in an external hard drive or move the project to another Mac or even to an iPad. Of course, I want to delete all of those empty models I created when I didn't know what I was doing. We can't delete the project that we're currently in, so the context menu changes depending on which project we select. Up at the top of the projects list are two buttons to import an external project and to create a new project, and there's a simple projects menu under the project's name. Now that we understand projects, the new thumbnails scrolling sidebar over on the right shows a lot more of the project's history. Right-click to delete or export images. I believe it's a long tap on iOS. The pop-up manager is still here. With a new feature, we can right-click and multi-select thumbnails using Shift-click or Command-click, and then delete or export them all in one go. Now back in the main window, if we click on a thumbnail, it loads all the parameters that created the image, the LoRAs, the ControlNets, the model, prompts, and everything. There are three options to sort the thumbnails: chronologically, so the newest are on top. The link icon shows the images that led up to the current one, so essentially it groups all the thumbnails in their respective families. Now the last is a coffee cup, and that hides working images like in-painting or ControlNet layers, or just the occasional blank canvas when you need to clear the canvas. I don't know why it's a coffee cup, and by the way, this is now a collapsible sidebar. We also have this image interrogator, which is a little basic. We may get a more advanced interrogator in the future, probably as a separate model download because they can be pretty big. Now let's finish the menu rail. There's the basic settings menu and an advanced settings menu. For now, at least, these are exactly the same as before, just split into two panels to save some scrolling and searching. There's also the full menu, which is just everything in one long scroll, same as before. Now, just briefly, the other two items in the menu rail. The first is our JavaScript menu. A little cleanup here has made each script easier to select or to run. I made a previous video about scripting, and there are many workflow scripts available on the Draw Things Discord. And we can close this menu with a white X in the top right corner. Now the last item on the menu rail is our training for custom LoRa and textual inversions. The menu icon is a running shoe, sometimes called a training shoe. Now I asked the dev what PEFT stands for. He told me it is parameter efficient fine tuning. So now you know. I made a separate video walkthrough for LoRa training in Draw Things, so check that one out for more details. Now the dev mentioned that this menu rail might evolve and get more tools, or some of the existing tools like maybe the ControlNet image layers might migrate over here. So if you're not seeing your full interface, it's just because I've made this video ahead of time. Alright, let's take a quick look at the prompts and token windows. There are some features here that aren't necessarily obvious. Now, prompts can be partitioned with line breaks, that's Shift-Enter, and this helps to keep the descriptions separate, like describing two different things in the scene or maybe a background and foreground. Now, the tokens will change color to reflect that grouping. It's not a perfect segmentation. There's still some bleed of descriptions and colors because, well, Stable Diffusion's language model is a little limited. Now, words can be given extra weight with round brackets, that's the parentheses, and reduce the strings with square brackets, and we can nest these to make it even stronger. But with the round brackets, or the parentheses, we can also add a colon and a number normalized for 1 equals 100% to specify the blend weight, and all of this shows up on the tokens so we can see when they're working. Now there are some tiny icons at the start of the tokens, and these are style templates. I'll get back to this in a minute. Select all or select none. Clean up, which just kind of takes away the empty spaces and cleans up the prompt. The paperclip allows attaching textual inversions, and the last is a target that moves the cursor to the start of the prompt, and a matching target at the end of the tokens to move the cursor to the end of the prompt. Now we can also select any token to select that word inside the prompt. And negative prompts have all the same token controls. Now, our entire prompt history can be scrolled with the blue timeline slider. We can scroll back to an earlier version of our prompt, both positive and negative together, without touching the image parameters. Now let's go back to the style templates at the front of the token list. We can arrange this as a list or thumbnail grid, and there's a search by name. You'll see this interface again under the models and the LoRa parameters. Now these templates are purely text, and they work best on a simple prompt, so just type in what you want in the positive prompt, leave the negative prompt empty, and choose a style. We see the negative prompt is filling in, but what we don't necessarily see is the positive prompt has hidden text that's describing the style, and we can see some of it hinted in the tokens. Now right-click on the template gives us the option of loading the style as plain text, so now we can edit it right in the prompt window. To empty the style prompt, click on the first option in the template list. Now all of our prompts are organized by illustration, photography, game art, miscellaneous themes like dystopian and metropolis. It's all the stuff that you know and love from Stable Diffusion. There are 100 styles to load and learn from. And we can add our own styles if you want to edit the custom prompt style JSON in the Draw Things model folder. Now customizing the menus is a little out of scope for this walkthrough, but we can add our favorites to the top and give them custom thumbnails. It's just letting you know. Let's jump back a little and look at the areas circling the canvas and prompts. In the top left corner is the name of our current project, and secretly it's a menu where we can rename, export, or start a new project. On the top right, we have export and share buttons, and a right click on the export gives us some more detailed save options, including copy to clipboard, and a sub-menu for saving just the visible canvas. We can hide the thumbnails to give a little more room on the canvas too. Now click and drag inside the canvas to move the image around, and scrolling my mouse zooms in and out. Down in the left corner, we can see the zoom value, and click to return it to 1x scale. Dragging the image to align with the visible canvas edge, this kind of shadowy line, will snap the image to align with that edge. Now under the right bottom of the canvas is a button to clear, and this will also reset the zoom level. And next to it is a button to paste from clipboard. On Mac, we can also drag an image directly onto the canvas, and it will scale to fill. Now if you right-click on the Paste button, that brings up a menu to load an image from files, and this is a great hidden feature in DrawThings. If the image I'm loading has DrawThings metadata, I have the option to load the parameters from that metadata, so I can recreate an image just from the saved ping. Now above those tools are the Canvas Layers menu. I mentioned this might be migrating to the menu rail, according to the dev. Sharing space on the canvas are these other image input layers, mostly for the ControlNets. So we have Scribble, Pose, Color Palette, a Custom Layer, Moodboard, and Depth Map. Click on these to reveal that layer instead of the generator canvas. I think all of these layers require a ControlNet model to be loaded to contribute to your render. They each have separate layers because we can use multiple ControlNets together and stack them. Now, most of these layers are straightforward. They just fill in the canvas and align with your render image. One of these tools is a little different. It's Moodboard, which is a container for multiple images. Navigate the menu to load the images into the Moodboard, and once you have multiple images, we can drag down on each image, it's a slider, to set their individual influence weight, mixing their contribution to the final image. Now, Moodboard is used in IP adapter face, and shuffle. I use IP adapter all the time, and I'm making a video on its many uses. If you want to be notified, go ahead and subscribe. If you find this video useful to you personally, you may find some of my other videos useful too, but they're not all DrawThings. Now, I also ask that you give the video a like if you think YouTube should recommend the video to others. I don't monetize my channel, the information I share is free, and so is DrawThings. Now, just below the canvas are the tools for in-painting, and the first is the magic wand. It's a little strange. It seems to be using some AI segmentation. I don't quite understand it. It's not like a Photoshop magic wand tool, so I don't always use this one. Next to that is the eraser, and with the eraser tool selected, we can't move or zoom the canvas. It locks in place. So first we zoom in on the problem area, like a face, and erase what we don't want. When we use the eraser, we need to set the mask parameter in the settings to feather the edges. As you can see, the aliasing looks pretty rough. And this is, again, it's not like a Photoshop eraser. We can't change the size of the brush, we just zoom in closer. Now, as I use the eraser, images are being saved to the thumbnails, so I can go back to an earlier step. Now, this is not an in-painting tutorial. In fact, there are a number of methods. Some are special models, some are ControlNet, and there's even a LoRA now. But the basic idea is that we're going to zoom in on a problem area, erase the image, and then in-paint with a fill-in render. When we zoom back out, the mask blur hopefully hides the seams. Now, the last canvas tool is the paintbrush, and this is, again, not a full painting app. It's not like Photoshop, but we can draw lines in colors for Scribble and similar ControlNet tools without leaving DrawThings. Now, let's get to the parameter settings, and it seems like it should be the last part, but believe it or not, there's still a lot to show you. All of it's here in the parameters sidebar. This is the controls for Stable Diffusion. Up at the top, we have a place to save the full configuration settings, just the parameters including the model and LoRAs, but not the prompts. There's also copy, paste, and that should allow you to move settings to another project, and delete to manage the list. Now from the menu rail, we can select the basic settings menu and the advanced settings menu, and as I said before, there's also the full menu, which is just everything in one long scroll. Now also remember that every parameter has some hint text. Just click on the name of the parameter, and now there's a little info icon to remind us it's there, but click anywhere in that header to show or hide the hint text. Now, before you can draw things running with Stable Diffusion, the first thing you need to do is download a model. Draw Things has cloud downloads for the most popular models and all the official releases from Stability AI. The dev has also created compressed 8-bit models for Macs and iOS devices with less RAM. They also run faster because they take up less space in memory. Now, the new model directory is similar to the Style Templates interface. We can see it in the list view and in a grid view. I'd like to have custom thumbnails, but honestly, I just use the search and bring up my models by name. Now, the first icon in the list is a link to the model manager. And from here, we can delete models or compress a new model to 8-bit. And we have some tab links across the bottom. In the center, we can download a new model from the web, either through a URL, or if there are any models in your downloads folder, they're going to show up here ready to import. Under the bottom right tab, it looks like a spinner toy. We have model mixing, and you can make a cocktail of your favorite models and balance them until they're just right. But of course, the models will need to be the same type, 1.5 with 1.5 and XL with XL. I've seen a lot of people mixing turbo models with XL, so that's something to explore too. Now next in the parameter list is the LoRa, and it's essentially the same menu inside, but next to the manager icon, we have a disable icon to clear the LoRa from this slot. Outside, LoRAs also have a weight slider, and we can add more LoRAs to stack them. The order they stack does affect the image, so you probably want to add a pose LoRa or a background LoRa, and then your character face LoRa, and then any style LoRAs last. The next parameter is for ControlNet, and we can stack these too, and they have a weight slider just like the LoRa, but now we also have sliders for start and end. That's going to allow us to apply a control only at the start, like when the pose is happening or the composition, or last as a refiner. Or we can set the percentages weight low and low-key influence the image all the way through. When a control is selected, it tells us which layer to use. All of them are some kind of image-to-image, I think, or scribble-to-image. Now, depending on the control, there might be other parameters here that customize the ControlNet. Pose, there are some irregular ones. Pose needs a regular image. I don't think it's able to read from a pose file. It needs to process from a natural image of a person, and it will find the pose from how they stand. Now, opposite to that, depth map needs a grayscale depth image. It does not process from a regular image. So each ControlNet has its quirks, so I'm going to have to leave them for their own video. Now the next parameter down is text to image or image to image, and toggling those buttons is shifting this strength slider. I don't really have much to say here. This is an old setting from the early days before ControlNet. The source image is just loaded straight into the canvas, and then the strength refers to how strong the text guidance should be, the prompt basically, versus the image in the canvas. Now, I much prefer IP adapter and the Moodboard, so I haven't really touched this since those came on. The rest of the basic settings are really what you think of as classic stable diffusion. Seed has a few options in a drop-down menu. Image size has new presets and ratio icons that will help. Steps, you kind of know what that is, and text guidance, which is CFG in other apps. Down at the bottom we have batch size. It works. I don't think there's really much of a speed boost. That's more of an NVIDIA thing, but if you're used to generating multiple images, there you go. Now, finally, we get down to the power button to generate, and I don't feel that I need batch size because I can generate up to 100 images at a time, and even more with scripting. Now, I also like these up-down ticks. That lets me get a few more or less generations without wandering all over the interface. So that leaves the advanced menu, is basically the catch-all container for all the extra stuff. Now, advanced menu holds the samplers, and we got a few new samplers, but they're specialized for the new fast models like Turbo and LCM. They're designed to converge in fewer steps. The rest of the advanced menu, it's mostly specialized parameters for specific models. SDXL has extra noise parameters and a refiner. Stable video diffusion has frames per second and extra noise guidance over time. These parameters have to be set up by the developer, so we can't just import every new class of AI model that comes out. Unfortunately, we have to wait for Draw Things to support it. That goes for ControlNets too, since they generally need to be rewritten in Swift with custom parameters in the interface. Now, the rest of the settings are just a grab bag, and also some settings that might need to be switched on and off as you go, like the face restore, the high resolution fix, the upscaler models, and I think I showed you the mask feathering before. That's one that you might need to adjust as you go. Now down here we also have the save generated images to. That's going to write every render to a location on your hard drive in addition to saving it in the project, so it is redundant. And also we have the HTTP API server is toggled on and off from here. Now I'm going to show you one more quirk of the interface, and this is actually some really important information. So I've hit generate, and we're waiting for my image to generate, and what you'll see is a preview of the image pops up inside the canvas, and it's not very clear because this is a very low-res preview, and we're also looking through at the orange and blue squares. Now the orange and blue fill in, that's an estimated time, so it doesn't necessarily line up with where the render actually finishes. But what I want you to take a look at is the preview image itself. As it fills in, it's showing you what the noise is generating into, and the first, we don't get a preview at all because that's basically just noise. That's the slowest one. As it fills in at the next detail level, we get large blobs of color. We can kind of see where the objects are going to fill in. And as we get each additional preview, we're getting more and more detail. Now, the important part of this is, yes, you can go ahead and abort or cancel this render if you can see that it's not giving you what you want. But what you need to watch is as the details in the noise get smaller and smaller, and the previews update faster and faster. What you want to watch for is when it stops updating. You're basically overcooking your steps. You're no longer adding to the image. You're just kind of grinding on the same image. So keep an eye on this preview. It's not just a preview. It's actually giving you pretty important information about your step count, whether you need to add more steps or if you can reduce that steps and save a lot of time. I hope that makes sense. Now, I asked the dev if this is Draw Things 2.0, and his answer was, maybe. Maybe in a few weeks. A gentle, incremental slide into 2.0. Just like my gentle, incremental slide into 2024. So that's it. This video is a little long, but I hope that you made it to this point. I really appreciate it and hope you had a learn. Like and subscribe if you want, and I'll see you soon.